Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
So for those who are kind of new to this concept, we're going to talk about the ProMindset Model. So I refer to this as the model. And it's something that I got from a mentor of mine, Brooke Castillo. And she has a wonderful podcast I highly recommend. It's called the Life Coach School podcast. And she dives into a lot of areas of mental health and mindfulness. And her big thing is using this model to solve any problem in your life. And so we're using this model to solve for the problem of confidence. What we want, there's results that we want in our life, and we identify that in order to get those results, that we want a better job, or we want to make more money, or we want to connect better, or we want to communicate more clearly with people, that there's an element of confidence that needs to happen to get that result. And so with the model, let me kind of explain a little bit. I'll go through the model and then we'll go through an example of this. But in life, we can kind of model out what's happening for us and why we're getting the results that we have, or why we're feeling the way we are feeling. And that comes from this. So circumstance, it always starts with a circumstance, and circumstances are neutral. They're neither good nor bad. Circumstances could be that we have an accent, okay, or that you are learning English as a second language, okay. And so circumstances are neutral. I'm an English language learner. Let's use that. I'm an English language learner. And then we have thoughts about that circumstance. Okay, the circumstance is neutral. It's neither good nor bad, but our thoughts about it is what creates our feelings. And then our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. So the biggest trick in this is recognizing that our circumstances don't create our feelings. Our thoughts about the circumstance create our feelings. And let's go ahead into an example of this to help. But one thing I want to point out is that the benefit of understanding this model is really about power. It's about being able to get the power back and get your own power back, okay? Because when we recognize that circumstances, which are usually outside of us, a lot of times we don't have a control over the circumstance, but that the rest of the model is within our control. So we get to decide what thoughts that we have about our circumstance. And then based on those thoughts, we can generate certain feelings. And from those feelings, we can generate certain actions. And then from those actions, we can generate the results we want in our life. So it really is bringing that power back into our lives and helping us be able to get the results that we want and feel the way that we want in our lives. Okay, and I mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again. So Viktor Frankl is an author of a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Okay? Between stimulus, circumstance, and response, our feelings, there's a space there where our thoughts are. And we get to choose what that is. Okay? And in that is our growth and our freedom. And I very much agree with that. Okay, so let's go through an example. I have a different example for this week to kind of help illustrate the model. So what happens is in our daily life, we have an unintentional model that happens, something that just kind of, it's our brain going on autopilot. It's our brain just doing what our brain does of trying to keep us alive. Okay, it's trying to keep us alive. It's trying to keep us safe. And it's just doing its job here, okay? So we kind of have to separate and say, I like thinking I'm not my brain. You know, who I am is not my brain, because my brain can go crazy sometimes and kind of have all these thoughts that are not helping me, but it's really just trying to keep us alive. It's trying to keep us safe from the dangers that are in the world and what it perceives to be the dangers in the world. And it's done a beautiful job for, you know, many, 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 many years as our life has progressed. But now at this stage of our life and this stage of humanity, you know, some of those things that were dangerous to us before are not dangerous to us now. So our brain hasn't quite caught up with that sometimes. So we have to train it. We have to evolve. We have to mature and progress in our evolution here. Okay, so let's talk about a circumstance. So you're giving a presentation. So Sebastian was talking about, you know, kind of answering questions from people and things like that. So maybe you're in a presentation and you're there's a question and answer after and things like that. So that's the circumstance, all right? Then we have thoughts about the circumstance. So for many of us, this is how it plays out just naturally without us being aware. There's thoughts like they're judging me, or they're not going to value what I have to say. I can't make a mistake here. You know, last week we talked about, you know, I'm a professional. The thought Marta had was, I'm a professional and professionals don't make mistakes. You know, it's like, I can't make a mistake because I'm supposed to be, you know, this certain way. And I don't want to say something embarrassing. Okay. Or I don't want to the feeling of embarrassment when I make a mistake. Here, let me, excuse me. I'll move this over here. Okay. So we have all these thoughts that are kind of swirling on automatic, and they kind of come to us. Well, based on those thoughts, of course, we're going to feel insecure going into that presentation. Of course, we're going to feel nervous. We're going to feel unsure about ourselves. We're going to kind of resist that. And our body's not going to want to step into that situation, because think about it. If your thoughts are going, nope, this is scary, this is bad, run away. You know, those are the feelings that are going to come up. You're going to feel insecure and nervous. And then the actions that come from that, when you're feeling insecure and you're feeling nervous, you're probably going to speak too fast. And, you know, your mouth is not going to move the way it needs to, and you're not going to project your voice the way it needs to, right? You're going to speak too fast. You're going to speak too quiet. You're not going to move your mouth enough. Kind of those 3 easy tips are the first thing that go when we're in these situations of feeling nervous. And you may try and find a way out of the presentation, or, you know, or just resist it. Okay. And the results from that, you may get bad reviews because you didn't show up as kind of your best self. You may be unhappy with the presentation, and you may avoid future presentations because you're just like, no way, that was super unpleasant. I don't want to do that again. Okay. So this is kind of that unintentional model, something that tends to just happen on autopilot. Okay. So let's talk about that same circumstance. You're giving a presentation. And let's talk about how we can create an intentional model here. So the intentional model really starts with the thoughts that we have. What thoughts can we kind of generate, or how can we shift this to create a different result and create different feelings? So I have a lot of value to offer. Okay, so if you're thinking, I have a lot of value to offer, just kind of feel how that feels in your body if you're thinking these things. You know, it's not about me. This presentation is not about me. It's about my audience. I want to provide that value to my audience. So I'm here for my audience, and I'm here for you. This is my favorite thought that I use all the time. So when I'm feeling nervous, and I always feel nervous when I get in front of all of you. I'm just saying it doesn't always go away. We just learn to deal with it. Is that my favorite thought when I come to is, it's really not about me. It's not about me. It's about my students. It's about their learning and their growth. And I want to show up as my best self so that I can be there for them and in what they need. Okay. It's okay if I make mistakes. It's a part of my learning and growth. So Lily, you were talking about that kind of, making mistakes, is that struggle of, I just don't want to make mistakes. And when you're learning a second language and you're growing in that, in that second language, and you're not as good as your first language, and you just don't want to be making mistakes. But if we kind of come to the terms of like, I am human, I make mistakes, it's part of my learning and growth, it really can make all of the difference. So what comes of that? So we have those type of thoughts. That's where confidence comes. Okay, when we have some of these type of thoughts, and we're going to kind of talk about more thoughts that can really be generated here, and it's going to be unique to you. So these are just some ideas, but for you, you might grab onto a thought that just is so powerful to you, and you just practice that thought. You just keep that thought going. Okay. So the feelings of confidence really come from those thoughts and what we generate on our own. Okay. So your actions, you may speak slower, and here, let me move this. I want to see what your chats are. Oh, I have to go back here. Okay, sorry about that. Just want to see. I want to make sure I'm seeing what's happening in the chat. Okay, good. Yeah, and I realize this is a review, but I want you to, it's the practice, it's the application of these things that are really going to make the difference. So if you start kind of thinking, okay, how can I model this out in my own life? Then it's going to bring a lot more power for you, okay? So the actions from this, you're gonna connect with your audience more. If you're thinking, I'm here for my audience, oh my gosh, there's so much more connection. There's so much more that you're going to feel there, and you're going to show up so much better in your own. You'll probably get better results, reviews from that, great reviews, happy with your presentation, and you're looking forward to more presentations. You're wanting to get into that more, okay? And I want to suggest that all thoughts really are optional. We've talked about that before, but I want to emphasize that again. All thoughts are optional, okay? So as we kind of think through this model, and that unintentional and the intentional, and kind of what we want to create for ourselves, a lot of times it's hard to kind of see our own brains and see what's happening. So that's why I wanted you to kind of do those reflection questions at the beginning, is that we can have a chance to kind of think through, okay, what is it that's blocking that confidence?
Your voice is important and needs to be heard. If you're ready to speak English clearly and with greater confidence, I invite you to start your free 7-day trial at pronunciationpro.com.